If you're looking for a clean, sober, professional, academic,
well-researched, historically accurate, generally accurate, serious podcast
on Southern folklore, ghosts, bizarre events, and unique people,
this podcast is not for you.
However, if you've decided you can live with that,
then join us for The Strange South.
The Strange South.
Woo! Yeah! Happy 100!
Yeah. Oh, we wish we were saying that to Betty, too.
No.
Singing that song.
Why you gotta make it sad?
I'm not, because it's happy. The reason we're singing it is because of our unboxing of our new tarot cards. I'll let y'all talk about that. But
Yes. Our good friend Jeff at Parental Advisory Movie Podcast sent us like
Jeff and
forever.
Ruth.
Yes, and his wife Ruth sent us forever ago a gift for our 100th episode,
Because
which
we were
only
supposed to-
just now getting to.
We were supposed to like try like around the new year to like nail the 100. It didn't happen.
thanks, COVID.
It's
We
fine.
we
it's
all,
fine.
you know what?
It's fine.
In our own sweet time.
Yeah, we do things when we need it.
Exactly.
things.
As we all should.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
So
making
we are
noise.
just super happy, like loving this whole like Golden Girls tarot cards.
Golden
And we want to
Girls.
turn every single card into a T-shirt and wear it every day.
every day.
So yay! And Nashville Ghosts, and yes, very sweet. So thank you to
Coffee.
our friends at Parental Advisory Movie Podcast.
Yes,
so
we
they've
love it.
always been our friends. We love them.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So this is the 100th episode.
Bong. I don't know. I don't know how we could like show our excitement on the internet radio.
On the internet radio, I don't
The
know.
applause button. Don't you have it on there?
Oh, you have an applause button.
Oh,
You have an applause
we
button.
do. Okay.
Wait, do you want me to say 100th episode again?
Hold on.
And
I'm just
we
gonna
didn't
push.
say
Oh,
hello.
wait, she's pausing us.
I'm not paused. Hold on.
Oh, that's it. 100.
It's a dance party.
I don't know which one it is. Hold on. That is.
Not it. That's
The
like
more you know.
the Windows like
There we go.
it.
You
Oh my
ready?
God. Yeah.
So okay.
This is our 100th episode.
Thank you.
We're leaving all that in, right?
I say we should.
This is partly that we're feeling the joy because none of us has really been drinking much in the last month and a half. Courtney, what was our special 100th episode drink?
You didn't say hello to each other, depending on who you are.
Hi, Marleah.
Hi, Patrice.
Hey,
Hi, Courtney.
Hi.
Courtney's like, do it right, y'all.
Well, I haven't been here for a minute. Have I been here this year?
No.
I mean, you've been here, but we didn't record.
We did 99 by ourselves.
Right.
And yeah, so it probably seems to the listeners like I've been drinking a lot because the last one I was on, I think we were pretty lit with Jingle Juice.
Jingle juice, jingle juice.
But this drink is our 100th drink. I was trying to come up with an alliterative name.
Oh, like alliteration.
And, well, even though it probably doesn't exactly fit, I've decided I'm going to keep it anyway.
Keep
So
it.
this is the Centennial Single Barrel Smash. Woo!
It's
so
tasty.
even though Centennial means 100 years, it's 100 episodes.
It's 100.
That feels like 100 years because of COVID. But yet it's so short.
Mm-hmm.
Single Barrel Jack Rye. Apricot
Yum.
jam. Let's see. Orange pills, lemon juice. Add a little peach schnapps and muddled it all together. Put a lot of Jack Daniels in it. Here
A
we
lot.
are. Cheers.
Cheers,
God.
y'all.
It's whiskey. And I
Cheers.
can feel it.
It's whiskey.
Yes. It takes about 3 sips to really settle in, and then you're like, oh, yeah.
This is my first proper drink this year because I got the COVID. I don't know if they told y'all, but I got the COVID. It got me. Omicron took me down for a few weeks. But I'm here. I'm good. No hospital. Taste and smell.
Yes.
Lungs are
Taste
pretty
and
fit.
smell. Taste and smell.
So,
Taste and smell. Taste and smell.
but a dry January, not at my choosing.
I'm the last woman standing, so
We're all rooting for you, Patrice.
We believe in you.
thank you.
We believe in you, Patrice's
Thank you.
T cells or whatever.
Immune system.
Yeah, I doubt, because none of my nothings is anything.
None of my nothings is
New T-shirt.
New t-shirt.
nothings is anything.
Well, we were just talking earlier about we were talking about my birthday the last time that we saw a lot of our friends like all in one place. Then we went and had, the traditional Mexican food with the sombrero and the shot of tequila. And we had just recorded earlier doing the Spanish flu of 1918, and I was telling Marleah and Courtney, it's like, I've been following this blog of over in China. They're quarantining, and these, this woman, she's been isolated for like this past month, and she's been documenting it, and it sounds pretty horrifying. And lo and behold, that was like truly the last time that we have, like, as a huge group, been all together.
February 2020.
February 2020.
Yep. You were our oracle.
I know.
Oh my God. That's like the wrong shit. I need to be like going, and we are going to be gazillionaires.
Soon the lottery.
And
On the Mediterranean.
on the Mediterranean in our own yacht.
We're all going to live in
I just have a
Greece.
feeling, right?
Come on, universe.
Come on, universe.
But yes.
So we were talking about that, and we were talking about episodes, since this is our 100, like some episodes that
Yes, that's
really...
We've been doing this for 100 episodes.
100 years. I know. It's, and like we've always commented before, we're not as consistent as we used to be because life, but us consistently still doing something for 100 times is like the most
We should pat
mind-blowing.
ourselves on the back.
Patting right now. It's just amazing. And I'm so fortunate to have you two in my life.
I know,
I'm
me
so
too.
thankful for
Thank
both of you.
And we've thought a lot about how awesome it is that so many of you listen
yes.
to
I
this.
know.
Still.
And that we've gotten to meet so many people. And
Yes.
that was one of the things we were talking about. It's like and we really, really miss meeting you. And we
Right.
really, really miss doing live shows.
Absolutely.
So much.
So much.
But
Yes.
we talked through all of cool stuff we've done. We talked about our live show at the Goat House in Montgomery. At
Well, our first show was at Anniston.
The Peerless.
The Peerless.
yes, was it the Peerless Saloon in Anniston? Thank you, Christy Farmer.
Christy
for helping
Farmer
us
was
set
at
that up.
Jim, and
all of our friends that
friends
came.
like showed
Had a
up.
ton.
It was a great crowd, and we had like some really I had the, what did I tell?
Mummy. You did a mummy. You
I did the mummy.
Yes,
You did
And-
that bride.
and I did the pickled
The
bread of
gooey
Colonel
did.
Chancellor.
The pickled bra.
Say the gooey
It
one.
was that was around Valentine's Day. I feel like that show was. I feel like we were doing some weird Valentine. I don't know.
Yeah,
But,
I don't either. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and a lot of people showed up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so excited. And then we did the Pod X.
Yes, we did Podex, thanks to the encouragement of our friends locally.
Yeah, Jenna, and we met Heather, who's
And we met Jeff there.
and we met Jeff.
Jeff
That's
from
where we met
Parental
Jeff.
Advisory.
Yes,
we
I
met
forget
Jeff at
that.
Podex.
I just always assume that we've known Jeff forever. Because Marleah said that last time. She's like, and we met Jeff. I was like, did we meet him there?
Didn't we already know Jeff?
Didn't we already know, right? And yeah, Jeff, absolutely.
And then we did our
Goat House.
Halloween episode at the Goat House with the Goat Man Ate My Brat story, which was amazing. And all of our friends that came with us to that show, and all of our friends that we randomly met and took home to
took
our
home with
Airbnb to
us.
watch movies with.
Then we watched the Arkansas.
Shark and Sharkansas.
Arkansas.
Arkansas
Shark-
Massacre, whatever. What was
It
it?
was women's prison.
Women's prison. Yes. Oh my God. So that was Paige and Mary Beth. We just randomly brought home from the bar. We met Kellyanne. We met fucking Kellyanne
Fucking
there.
Kellyanne. Absolutely. We just we have made so many just great friends and acquaintances, even though that we don't really hang out.
I know,
like
and I
want
wish
to.
we, like our good friend James at the Goat House, I really wish we could get back there and do stuff up with him again. He's such a good friend. And we went to Wetumpka. We met Scott, who told a story for us at Wetumpka. And thanks to Christy Meaner, who put us up there. And
that was
set
a great
us up
show,
with her
too.
stage.
Mm-hmm.
And
we did the Stone Center.
And we did the Stone Center here in Jacksonville, Alabama. And so thanks to Randy Blades, who set us up with
Randy.
that. It had nothing to do with nepotism whatsoever.
No.
He was just recognizing our great talent. And
that was a lot of fun. We brought the haunted doll to the theater, and Jen think is still
disturbed several of his students and faculty with why we brought it here. Why did you bring that here?
Yes.
And all of our hometown people, hometown stories.
All of our,
or what do we call them? Sorry.
Listener
lores. Everybody who's
but that
ever
was
done a listener
hometown
lore.
there because that's when Freddie gave
Freddie
his
and
story
Jen both.
of the theater, and Jen gave her theater story of
That's
Birmingham.
right. We had some good stories. We haven't done many listener lores, but if you are if you've got a story to tell, we're still up for it.
And if
Trey's story.
A true story.
Trey's story.
Trey's story. Yes, Trey's story was stellar. And that was our listener lore number 6, I think it was. It was like the time my girlfriend was possessed. You need to go back and listen to that if you haven't.
That was our Goat House.
Yeah, that one took me by surprise,
yes,
and I'm
me
still
too.
haven't recovered from that one. We will post all these episodes that we are listening in our show notes for our 100. But we were also talking about our favorite, we do have some favorites, and of course I don't remember the numbers, and so that will also get posted. But my favorite, I have a lot of favorites early on, and my favorite was the one, the Rockford.
Mine too.
The Rockford haunting.
Because that was the first one where Marleah maliciously went after me as far as my nerves and the scariness of it. Talking about the boo hag and all of the different things. And I think I just talked about the story I did before yours was the Haint Blue.
Yes.
Oh,
And it was one of those times because we used to always have that where all of us, we never talked to about our what we were going to talk about, and then all of a sudden they would be practically the same thing. It would be like an obvious through line. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Rockford story. And Jenny, who wrote the book that's based on is called Haint Blue, the Rockford House Haunting. And
that was so weird.
We went there on our way back from our Montgomery.
Yes, we did.
Wetumpka
She actually let us in on a couple of secrets about kind of where to look for the house, and we won't share that because she asked us not to because people don't want to get mobbed by strangers. Right. But she's been a pretty cool person all along too. So that's another friend we've met.
And we saw Bigfoot on that.
And we saw
journey.
We saw somebody's yard Bigfoot.
So let me just set up this story here. So we're all a little tired. We're driving back, and so we decided to drive past the Rockford house, which was totally not what any of us had pictured in our brains. And so we drove past that, and so we're like, okay, let's go on home. Had we already visited the graveyard?
Yeah, we visited Willie's grave
right.
Also already at that point.
Which is really freaky because he was buried right next to the people he killed.
Yeah.
That was a little freaky. And so we're just driving, we're all maybe still drinking. I can't remember. Anyway.
I don't know.
Yes. I know a couple
Some of us were.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're just cruising on the way. Brandy's driving and I'm just listening to tunes and talking about the show and everything. And all of a sudden, Courtney goes, "There's Bigfoot. There's Bigfoot." And she sits up.
Bigfoot.
And we're we're kind of
BFE.
What?
Nowhere.
We turn around and we're okay, maybe she's having an episode. It's what's going on? And she's no, there's Bigfoot. Randy, turn around. Turn around. And so we all look around and we're okay, Randy, turn around. There's Bigfoot. And when she says Bigfoot, I'm okay, is there actually Bigfoot? Did he just walk across the street? Because this is what I'm somebody said there's Bigfoot. I'm looking for the live Bigfoot. So I'm kind of confused at what's going on. And we turn around and we drive up, and there is 3 beautiful statues in front of this property of like Papa Bigfoot, Mama Bigfoot, and Baby Bigfoot, and it was
They
amazing.
were like the metal
Yes.
Right.
shapes.
And why did we not
in the
like
woods.
take pictures?
I did.
Okay.
I think we, I was
But
gonna
we
say-
didn't do like a group picture. I think
No.
we were kind of freaked out at being on people's land and
Yeah.
We
stuff.
were out where you don't get out. but,
Yeah.
You know.
And there
We've
was
talked about
there was
this
a fence
before.
at the road too. I
We're
I
from
think
the
we
South.
actually
We know
had
better
to.
than to get out on people's property.
Right.
we don't
We
know out in the
know
middle of
better.
nowhere.
If you have a Bigfoot on your property, it's kind of like you're asking for people to come on
Yes.
your property.
This is
a
a photo op.
It is a
this
photo
is
op.
a photo op.
Yes. So that was crazy, and I love that. And I'm glad you took a picture of it. I just don't have any idea. Like, I don't think I remember seeing
That was back when we took our photos and dumped them all in one big Strange South Photos like folder in
Oh.
Google Drive or something. And
We'll have to go
like
look.
they all just lived there.
I was like
Okay.
trying to look now, but you're right. I bet that's where it is.
I feel like
What's
one
your
of-
favorite?
One of my favorite episodes. It's a weird favorite episode, but it's one of the ones that always sticks out to me as something that, like, the whole episode was just hilarious to me, and I'm not really even sure why. Looking back, it's like that's just the impression that it leaves. But it was like. It was episode 51. It was the vegetable man and the like she turned me into a newt.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that was one that because I remember it was in the middle of pandemic because we did it on Zoom and I was sitting in my bed trying to do this and I just remember laughing my ass off doing that whole thing and I was just because I had gotten this story and I was like I don't think there's really anything to this like I don't think I've got a lot of substance here but we're just gonna go with it and we just fucking went insane laughing. And the other one that was one of my favorites was the Dicks in a Box. The
Yes.
Dicks in a Box episode.
Yes, the tobacco enema.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I was like,
That
was
was
Dicks in a Box.
That was a great. Well, because it was that wasn't that the museum?
It was the museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Patrice did it. It was like
I remember the story once you said it, but I didn't know Dicks in a Box.
that was the name of the episode too.
Forgot.
Yes, it's I am. Oh, that might be episode 51. That was I don't remember what number the other one was, but that was
We
like
will put
I
the-
am Sadie Baker and Dicks in a
Yes,
Box,
and Dicks
and it
in a
was
Box.
that was a fun episode. I laughed my ass off on that one too.
That was a great find. Those
Yeah.
are one of my favorites when I find that thread and I pull on it and it's like glitter explodes.
Yes,
That's my favorite.
yes. We have a lot of good memories.
We're still making them 100. Here we are. We've made it.
We got to get on it.
I do.
Let's get on it. Let's make some memories.
We're making
making memories in the basement.
making memories at home still since 2020. Home, my home, and this home, and your home. That's the only places we've been, basically.
That's
but
okay. It'll be over soon. It'll be over soon.
Oh,
It'll be over
it's
soon.
not.
It'll be over soon.
It's not.
It'll be over soon.
I know.
Don't say that, Patrice.
It's not, y'all. It's not. Trying to be real.
I'm
3
gonna
years.
leave my house sometime though. More. I'm gonna leave my house more.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're super like
Only for I don't
I
even
know.
know.
for like 6 months. You
Yeah,
can go
no,
anywhere.
I've had COVID and 2 shots and a booster, so
Same
now
here.
I'm like super immune for maybe like
6
maybe
months.
3
like
months.
3
no,
months.
no more than 3 months.
Yeah.
And possibly as little as 1. So I'm like, fucking hell, I should have done everything. I also, I don't know. I can't see the future. I just know we have to
Just keep living our life.
we gotta live it sometime. I'm gonna go back places. I'm gonna go back and do things, and I'm gonna wear my mask, and I'm not gonna bitch about it.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right.
That's right. That's right.
I'll just be in my basement.
I've been looking
to
for
bring the
photos,
joy to
and I'm
Patrice.
getting pretty depressed because there's all these places I've been before 2020.
No,
in my
we can't.
photo
We
album,
need
and
to
I'm
stop.
Like, don't look anymore.
No, it's coming again. It's coming again. We're gonna go to New Orleans next year. We already decided.
Yeah,
yes.
take that.
Is this silent? Like,
Ah,
Put that in the universe.
are you ready?
yes.
Should we start episode 100?
Yes.
100.
I scared you.
100.
Patrice is like, "What? Am I ready for what? What? What's happening? What happened?" This
Do it.
is an episode. This is a story that I found yesterday.
Yay!
You would think that I would have put more into this, but I did, and then I was like, "This sucks," and I trashed it. And I went with this instead.
You know, episode 100 is about the heart. And it's okay if you don't like have all the feels for your story. So
Yep. Well, let's do it. I'm going to do it.
I'm
Okay.
excited. I'm ready.
We're in Arkansas this week.
Oh, Arkansas.
Arkansas. So Quitman, Arkansas,
Have no idea
which
what
you've
that
never
is.
heard of.
Yep.
It's a very small town. So Little Rock, Little Rock's like right smack dab in the middle of Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Unless I read the map wrong. And then Quitman is like just due north of Little Rock, kind of almost halfway between like Little Rock and the border, the northern border. So it's
Okay.
there's less than 700 people in Quitman, Arkansas, according to the 2020 census.
Quitman.
Quitman.
QIT.
Quit, man.
Quit, man. Stop it.
And also, see, I looked up a lot of, census records. And I was like, oh, look, I got access to Ancestry.com and all of these record sites. So there's like, it's almost 92% white. There's like 4 black people in the census. So, this is the town we're in. It has more churches than anything. There's there's a Methodist church and actually, no, there's not a Methodist church. There's a Mormon church and there's a Mennonite church and a Baptist church. And there's a church called Hope Unlimited, which kind of sounds like a Jesus box store or something.
Yeah.
But there's like a Catfish Barn restaurant and a high school and a Mexican restaurant. And that's all you really need in life.
Oh, yeah.
So I tried.
Sounds like a typical Southern town.
Exactly.
I was just gonna
That's
say.
what we're going for.
Except not the Mormon church.
Yeah, the Mormon
part.
church is
Or
an
the
unusual
Mennonite.
addition.
Yeah.
It's like Mormon church all the way on the west side of town, Mennonite all the way on the east side of town, which isn't really that far from each other anyways. But so I tried to find newspaper records about Quitman, and you get like obituaries and high school basketball scores. So, that's
Southern town.
we all know this town. So there's not a lot of stories out there about Quitman, but there's one that sticks with the town no matter how much they wish they could ditch it. And that's the story of the dog boy of Mulberry Street.
Oh.
So a lot of people over the years have told stories about this. And this, like, since over the years, meaning since like 1990. Folks have told of walking Mulberry Street in Quitman alone at night and suddenly feeling a presence nearby and looking off into the bushes and seeing like this hulking entity like a man, but like kind of hunched down with glowing eyes that all of a sudden will drop to all fours and chase the fuck out of you down the street. And if you don't run fast enough, it will bite at your heels while you go. That's the kind of story that people tell Dogman story.
All right.
And like so many stories of this kind, it seems to come from a combination of like gossip and, overheard things and kids' games and trying to scare each other and actual real events. And most people who've talked about this, and I don't know that there are a ton of people who've talked about this, but most people who do tell this story say that the real events might actually be a little creepier than
Oh, shit.
the legend. So the story that I'll credit for this, and most of what I'm telling from comes from this story that was in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette in 2007. It was written by Lisa Armstrong. And she went through local records and talked to local folks to try and kind of get to the bottom of where some of this came from. And she started with Floyd Bettis. So he was born in Cleburne County, which is Quitman's county in Arkansas, in 1909. He enlisted in 1942 as a warrant officer. And, so this is still World War II is going on. So he did the thing, he enlisted, he went to the military. Then the war ends in 1946. He gets married, but then he files for divorce in 1948. And the reasoning is intolerable treatment. So I'm guessing maybe his wife was cheating on him. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I don't know. Sometimes Southern men think like if you don't cook 3 squares,
That's intolerable treatment.
it's intolerable.
Sure, it would be a considered legitimate reason
Of course.
to file for divorce.
And so, after 2 years of marriage, they divorce and, they have no kids. And he remarries again in 1950. In June 1950, he marries Aline Moore. And by this time, he's 41 years old. And Aline is 35. Neither of them have any children. This is the 50s. And it's like, you might as well be dead by now.
Right.
You know, come on, chop, chop, chop. Make some kids, nuclear family.
Right.
Let's go. So they are really anxious to get a family going, but it doesn't work immediately. And finally, in 1953, 3 years they've been married, they have a son, and his name is Gerald on his records, but also Gerald in a lot of records, you know, the way it sometimes goes.
Right.
So they have this child. They move into this nice, big, Victorian-style, beautiful house on 65 Mulberry Street in Quitman, Arkansas, around where he's from. Gerald grows up sort of alone in Quitman because, you know, he does have some cousins, but who live near them, like in their county, near their town, but they're 20 years older than him. You know, everybody else had kids on the normal at that time timetable.
Right.
And so these
18.
kids are gone. They're not even in town anymore.
Right.
His grandfather died before he was born. His grandmother lived 40 minutes away and died when he was 10. So it's not like he had that family unit that you expect in towns like this. In small southern towns, you kind of expect that there's going to be, you're going to have your people around. Yeah. He didn't have his people around, like probably, I would imagine, a lot of other kids did.
Right.
So, you know, he sort of grew up alone just from the get-go. And people say that maybe because he was such like a late in life godsend to his parents, that the discipline game kind of just got thrown out the window. You know, they're like, oh, this is our baby. This is, you know, our angel. We're going to do everything for him. People kind of gave the impression that that was how he was treated.
Right.
And that was how he became like used to being treated by everyone.
Right.
So there was a Quitman resident named Mary Nell Hollibird, and she talked about how his parents, Floyd and Aline, were good people, but Gerald was nasty. He was a brat, he was vicious, and he was cruel, she said. And another longtime resident named Nelda Kennedy said in this article that he also had trouble at school. So one of the things about not having your people, you know, there's nobody to just stand up for. You don't have siblings, you don't have cousins, nobody's going to stand for you.
Right. And nobody's also going to set examples for you.
Exactly. And so kids would bother him at school. They would steal things from him. And he was a big kid. Like, and I don't know if you know anybody who was a like larger than expected child growing up, but boys who are bigger than their age, they don't always have an easy. I mean, I know they can like pummel you on the football field or whatever, but like they look, if people think they're dumb,
right,
because they're bigger than their brain actually is, you know, because they're not actually as old as they look.
Right.
And so sometimes they can really get like raked over because they just look like lummoxes, you know, sometimes. So he's getting all this kind of shit from kids at school. So Nelda Kennedy said he was also, though, it wasn't just that he was like harassed at school. It was that he was also like really arrogant and he would seek attention. She almost like made it sound like he would go out of his way to get harassed, which I think is maybe an adult's flawed way of looking at how children behave. But, you know, there was one time where there was a family reunion at the Quitman City Hall, and he was there, and he like pulled this Chase lounge out from the side and laid down on it and grabbed like a thing of grapes, like a bunch of grapes, and was like feeding himself grapes like he was a Roman god or something. Right. And everybody was just like, what the fuck is, like, what the hell is this kid doing? So he was theatrical flair.
He was living his best life.
Also, I recall Bugs Bunny doing that a lot. So depending on his age, that may not have been that unusual of a thing.
It may have just been like a joke.
Yeah.
You know, kind of deal. Yeah.
And nobody got it. But so as he got older, though, the neighborhood started noticing like weirder things about him. So he would always be wandering around the streets, and he would be wandering around surrounded by stray animals like dogs and cats. And so that's where he got the nickname Dog Boy. But they originally were like, well, maybe it's because he's lonely because he doesn't have friends. You know, nobody else comes home with him, so he has these strays. But people started saying like he would take them home and do things to them. And Miss Hollibird said that she could hear the dogs howling at night.
Oh, shit.
And so people started to keep their distance more and more as Gerald grew older. And there's there's no record of him having a career. There's no record of him having a military enlistment at any point. There's no record that he ever moved out of his parents' house or tried to live on his own to try and kind of start his own life in another town. And Nelda Kennedy said, this is another one of the residents, that she was afraid of him. She said, if you had ever seen his eyes, they seemed to glow at night, which I was like, oh, that's over, but okay.
Yeah.
But she said one time he came over here and got onto us because we had trimmed a magnolia tree that overlapped into his backyard, she said. And when they started cleaning that house up, the house that, the magnolia tree, one of his uncles came to my house to borrow a gun because he was afraid that Gerald would get riled up about it. Like people were afraid of what Gerald was going to do if he got ticked off. As he grew, he became this towering guy. He was 6'4". He was 300 pounds. And so he's much bigger than his father, who's still living with him now over 60 years old and is a foot shorter, I think, than Gerald. According to his enlistment records, he was like 5'4".
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And so like Gerald is definitely like the body of power in that household. And Floyd and Aline Bennis were seen less and less outside their house as time goes on. So people started saying that Gerald was like physically and psychologically abusing his parents, that he was keeping them on the upper floor of the house and not letting them come down. If they're hungry, if they have to do something, like they have to come down with his permission. If they want food, they eat whenever he decides it's time for them to eat. Like that's kind of how people outside the house believe things are going. And they also started getting the idea that Gerald started beating his father when he was still in his teens, like on the regular. So one night, neighbors heard yelling outside the Bettis house, looked out their windows to see Floyd Bettis hanging to the window ledge of an upstairs second floor window because Gerald had thrown him out of the window.
Oh, shit.
And police came, but there's no record of any, they didn't arrest him as far as we know. Yeah, like Floyd didn't press charges. So we don't really know what happened after that, but he didn't go to jail for it. And then in 1981, when Floyd was 72 years old, he died in his home. And the newspaper said it was from a long illness. Neighbors all said that for whatever reason they decided this, that Gerald had thrown his father down the stairs and broken his neck. And the next year, after Floyd died, Aline Bettis broke her hip and had to be sent to the hospital. And while she's in the hospital, one of the women who's been, talking about what she's seen in this family over the years, Mary Nell Hollibird, she's a retired nurse. And so while Aline was in the hospital, Gerald came to see her. And Miss Hollibird said that she witnessed Gerald like slapping his mother while she was in her hospital bed, threatening her, telling her that he would sick the police on her if she told them what he had done.
No shit.
And so, I was kind of like, well, so much of this stuff is like, well, people said, well, neighbors believed, well, and I was like, so a lot of it is maybe just people's imaginations, maybe people just making up their own stories, but this was not, because she was actually removed from the house and put in adult protective custody after this happened. So it wasn't just the neighbors who were thinking there was something wrong. There was actually they removed
documents
her from him. Yeah.
because he would be what, 29?
He was in his late 20s. So meanwhile, they take Aline and they move her. Meanwhile, Gerald is back at 65 Mulberry Street. He's living in the house. He continues to collect stray dogs and cats apparently this entire time. And somebody even says that he builds an extension to the house partly to house these animals so that he can do whatever it is he does with them. But it's also a sunroom. So when the police come to talk to Gerald, they decide that the sunroom is not for collecting animals, it's for growing pot, which he gets arrested for and sent to jail for in 1984. And he dies of a drug overdose in jail in 1988.
Oh.
So,
wow.
And he's only 34 years old when he dies. So the house at 65 Mulberry, it stays in Aline Bennis's name until she dies in 1995. I swear, this entire time, every time I say Bettis, all I think of is Jerome Bettis, like the Steelers, the guy.
Yeah,
the football player.
I have no idea.
But in the late 90s, I would say, so Aline died in 1995. And in the late 90s, then the house is sold to a truck driver named Tony Weaver and his wife. And they started noticing weird things happening inside the house. Shortly after they bought it, Tony's wife, some of it was like the easy stuff. Like Tony's wife would turn off all the lights, be absolutely sure she turns off all the lights when she goes in for night shift. And then when she comes back on, all the lights are on. And it happens enough times that she starts to think that there's even like intruders in the house. Like, why would somebody come into your house and turn on all your lights and that be the only thing they do? But, she really can't make any sense of why this happens. Another time she's standing like in the foyer by the front door and there's a staircase that goes up to the second floor. And she sees like pennies floating in the air down the staircase that then all of a sudden out of nowhere just like drop all at the same time and clatter to the stairs. And she's like,
that is
what?
Bizarre.
It's a weird one, right?
Yeah.
And so Tony Weaver also claims that he saw a man looking through the foyer into the living room once. He was working on the house, and this man was outfitted like a World War II soldier in a uniform and a helmet. And he said that he looked like a 100% real person. And the person that he saw walks into the living room, and Tony tried to chase him and he got there and there's no one there, of course. And it turns out that the family that owned this house before the Bettises bought it had a son that fought in, I'm sorry, I said World War II, but I meant World War I soldier. And they had a son that fought in World War I and died at the age of 21, the Jackson family. So Tony's wife takes all of this information and is just like 6 months in, she's like, I would not like to live here anymore.
Right.
I would like to move.
Smart.
So they move out and they start renting the house out. So Quentin and Stephanie White move in 2003, and Stephanie immediately starts talking about weird things happening. Again, just the small things like the toilet will flush.
Right.
And there's nobody in the house, but the toilet will flush by itself. And then one day Quentin is working on the house. He has gone upstairs and stacked a pile of 2x4s in one of the bedrooms upstairs. He's come back downstairs to get something, and he hears this just like crash upstairs, runs back up the stairs, goes into the bedroom, and all of the 2x4s are standing on their ends in the room.
Oh, shit.
And so the couple only lives there for a couple months.
Yeah.
And
Don't blame them.
And Tom Weaver, who still owns the house, the truck driver, he on and off for years tries to sell this house and cannot do it. And he starts getting more and more pissed with whatever these spirits are that don't want this house. He says, if you bring somebody in here that they don't like, you're going to feel chills and your hair will stand on end because they let you know if they don't want someone here. And he said one lady was interested in buying the house. She brought her young daughter with her, and she said her daughter was like a sensitive. And while the women were walking through the home, the daughter was like, I feel very, very sad here. And they were like, we're out. That's it.
Bye.
Another time, there were prospective buyers who were walking through the house, and a recliner in the living room flipped back like there was somebody laying in it, and stayed that way the entire time they were there. And like nobody had touched it. There was another time somebody brought their dog to go see the house. The dog refused to step up into the front door.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff.
Trust your pets.
Trust your pets. So the last one was like there was a remodeler named Ed Munnerlin who was working on the house. And this was in 2007. I mean, these really aren't old stories.
Long. No.
But he said he's one of those who's like, I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in paranormal things. But he starts to feel uncomfortable working in the house. He has a day job. He only does renovations at night. You know, I have a lot of friends who do that kind of stuff too. You know, it's just the time that you have free because you work all day at something else. So he goes in, and every time he goes in, he feels like somebody's looking at him. It's not like something he's never done before. He's worked on other houses. He doesn't feel like this every time he goes into an empty house at night. But this house makes him feel creeped out. And so he has pulled up to the house multiple times while he's working on it to see a man in an upstairs window dressed in a bow tie and a brown jacket. And he says that when he's in the extension to the house, which is the sunroom that Gerald built, for whatever reason Gerald built it, he's seen a huge, odd-looking man with long brown hair, creepy eyes, he says, and great big arms and hands. And he says one time he walked right in front of me and glared at me. And he said, right after I saw him, he walked through the hall and he disappeared. And in 2005, the Central Arkansas Society for Paranormal Research, which is a fun little acronym because it spells Casper.
Oh my God.
They're and I don't know. I think they may be defunct because I had a hard time tracking stuff down, but I will post 1 or 2 YouTube videos of their investigation of the house. But they did an investigation in 2005 of the house, and they heard pennies falling. You know how I am about paranormal research people. Like,
Right.
I'm generally like, one of their videos was, listen for the man breathing. It's not the cameraman. And I'm like, okay. But they said that they found cold spots. And I mean, see now, but I should believe because a damn doll breathed on the freaking
Right.
podcast with me. But they heard the pennies falling. They said they saw a face in the window at one point. And they brought a medium in who said that she was like cursed at by a spirit and told to get the hell out. Mm-hmm. So the house has been on and off the market again and again and again since the death of Aline Bettis. And it sold for half its asking price in 2014. They had just kept on having to drop it and drop it and drop it. But it was back on the market in May of last year.
Oh, wow.
And so its most recent sale was June of 2021. Ooh. So it'll be interesting to see how the new owners make out.
My gosh.
But that is the story of the dog boy of Quitman, Arkansas.
Oh.
Wow.
Did anybody else see the dog? Well, I guess that was him with the weird eyes. And
Yeah,
walking
and
through the
somebody
wall.
actually said that they had seen the guy in the brown coat. They said that they'd seen a large man in a brown coat holding a cat in the upper window. So,
Oh God, I got chills.
that one, it's the 2x4s on their ends that gave me the chills on that one.
Yeah.
To be honest, that
But
part
what was the
freaks me out.
crash then?
I don't know.
Standing up?
I guess it was them
clanking
all
together?
clanking together while they stood up. But yeah,
Good one.
so
Yep.
dog boy.
Good job. All right, y'all. We'll be right back.
Do you want more Strange South every week? We can help. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you can join our Facebook fan group, Fans of the Strange South Podcast, to keep the chat going with our whole creepy community. Do you have a story idea for us or a story of your own to share? Email us at stories@thestrangesouth.com. Plus, if you join our Patreon, you not only help support the podcast, you get an exclusive bonus episode for every show and a discount on merch. You can find links to all of these things on our website, thestrangesouth.com, along with photos, links, and show notes from every episode, Strange South t-shirts, mugs, and other goodies. See you there.
You can do it, Patrice.
I'm trying, y'all.
We
Put on glasses, remove
believe
glasses.
in you.
This 100th episode, I do not have a 100 episode like ba glitter and glam, but we're going to get there. I'm going to have to do this in 2 parts. So tonight is part 1 of Tallulah Bankhead.
Ooh,
Do you know about Tallulah Bankhead?
I know that name.
I do too. I know the name.
But I can't remember why.
Well, I have 2 parts to tell you
Awesome.
about Tallulah Bankhead. And if we just lived a year in her life, we would have lived a full life. She is so prolific at everything. But Tallulah Bankhead is the celebrity, actress, personality that Cruella de Vil was modeled after by Disney.
Awesome.
Tallulah Bankhead was born in January 31st, which would be tomorrow, like
yeah.
anniversary,
Happy
right?
birthday.
1902 in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, in Huntsville.
In Huntsville, Alabama. She's an Alabama girl. And she was born to William Bankhead and Adelaide Eugenia, or Ada Bankhead. And her great-grandfather was James Bankhead, who was from Ireland. They settled in South Carolina. And Tallulah, which was like her nickname, was the name given to her from her paternal grandmother. So her 5 drinks, y'all. Her paternal grandmother was named Tallulah as well, and she was named after Tallulah Falls, Georgia.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Tallulah's father they came from like a political family, very active in the Democrat party in Alabama and the South, which was pretty much the minority. And in 1936, her father was the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. She was the niece of Senator John Bankhead and granddaughter of Senator other John Bankhead. That was John Bankhead the second. There's a lot of Bankheads apparently in Alabama. A lot of Bankheads. They're all political in the Democratic Party. Her mother, Ada, was actually from Como, Mississippi, which is in the Northwest, and it's not in the Delta, but it borders the Delta. And again, if you've never visited Mississippi and driven across the Delta, it's one of those just wonders of weirdness where you are driving through cotton fields and it's flat highway and you keep going and all of a sudden it just plummets and you can see the ridge of where the Delta begins, because apparently a long time ago that was where the river flowed through. And then it just receded and it left the Delta there, and that's why the Delta has such rich farmlands. It's also the poorest area in the whole country. Tallulah's parents' marriage was a little scandalous back in the day. Her mother was engaged to another man when she met William Bankhead, and she went to a trip to Huntsville to buy her wedding dress, and she met William Bankhead.
Damn.
And so it was like one of those things, love at first sight. And so she broke up with her fiance, left him at the altar, it sounds like,
Damn.
basically. And on January 31st, 1900, they were married in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh.
So their first child, Evelyn Eugenia Bankhead, was born. And then the next year, Tallulah was born to her parents on their second wedding anniversary. So it's pretty much like bam, bam.
No kidding.
And Tallulah was born in the Isaac Schiffman building in Huntsville, National Register of Historic Places marker that, shows that she was born in that second story, because she's a big deal. I remember vaguely hearing about her name, but not really making any kind of connections, and definitely didn't know that she was from Alabama. 3 weeks after Tallulah was born, her mother died of blood poisoning or sepsis. And coincidentally, Tallulah's maternal grandmother also died, giving birth to her mother. So it seemed to be kind of like a pattern repeated. And I don't know if that really had anything. Tallulah never had kids, so I'm not sure if that had really anything to do with it. But on her deathbed, it is said that Ada told her sister-in-law to take care of Eugenia. Tallulah will always be able to take care of herself.
Okay.
So Tallulah was baptized next to her mother's coffin, which is kind of sad. Yeah. Her dad was completely devastated by his wife's death and also leaving him with 2 young children.
Like, holy shit. Like 0 and 1 year old? Is that what they were?
Right. Basically. And it sent him into a bout of depression and alcoholism. Tallulah and her sister were then really raised by her namesake, Tallulah James Brockman Bankhead. It was a family of influence. I mean, they were a political family, and they had money, they had power, and they had, influence. So she was raised at the family estate called Sunset in Jasper, Alabama. She spent her childhood she was the second child. And so she spent her childhood trying to get her father's attention. She always needed her father's approval, and more so because she was described as extremely homely and overweight, while her older sister was thin and prettier than she was. She was highly energetic. She was prone to throw tantrums, rolling around the floor, holding her breath until she was blue in the face. Very strong-willed child. Her grandmother often threw a bucket of cold water on her to stop her from these outbursts that she would have. And it was all attention seeking. And that pretty much didn't change throughout her life. When she was 5, she had her tonsils removed, and it was botched a little bit by the doctor, and he cut into her, like,
Larynx.
he cut something
vocal
back
cords.
there that caused her a lot of pain, and her dad felt really bad for her. And they said that this possibly could be why she has a known very husky voice, like when she grew up, and they thought that maybe this botched surgery was caused her husky voice. But she also had a lot of chronic bronchitis as a child, and so it was probably her mezzo-basso voice was due more to that. But this surgery happened, and it caused her a lot of pain, and her dad was giving her attention, and he felt really bad about it, so he took her to a vaudeville show at this time, and she taught herself, like, totally just enraptured with the show. They were cartwheeling and they were doing these skits. And so she taught herself how to do cartwheels, and she could always be found cartwheeling around the house, singing and reciting literature that she memorized. She had like a photographic memory. And so, once this was discovered that she could actually entertain people with her, reciting and performing, she became pretty much an exhibitionist from the beginning. And, her theatrics really gained her the attention that she so much wanted. She would often mimic her teachers from school. And Tallulah claimed that her first performance was witnessed by the Wright brothers, as in the airplane. So
Okay.
Orville and Wilbur.
Redenbacher.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Orville Redenbacher, the popcorn guy, and her aunt got it on. No. Orville and Wilbur were visiting her Aunt Marleah, and they're in Montgomery, Alabama, and she said, Tallulah claimed that I won the prize for the top performer with my imitation of my kindergarten teacher. Tallulah wrote, the judges, Orville and Wilbur Wright. This comes from an autobiography that she wrote. So Tallulah and her sister Eugenia's grandmother and aunt were beginning to find the girls even more difficult than normal to handle as they aged. And we're
Shocker.
shocker, we're like 10 or 11, we're like bordering that hormonal,
They're tweens.
puberty thing going on, and they were like, this is just too much, because Tallulah was already out there to begin with, and then her sister, it sounds like, wasn't too far behind. So it's off to Catholic school for you both. So their father was working from their Huntsville home a lot as a lawyer, and he proposed that the girls be enrolled in a convent school, which always does wonders for those who are just, rebellious in nature. Which is kind of funny because, he was Methodist and their mother was Episcopalian. But in 1912, both girls were enrolled in the Convent of the Sacred Heart in Manhattan, New York.
Wow.
Yeah, Eugenia was 11 and Tallulah was 10. So about this time, he's in politics.
Like, we'll just send you to Manhattan.
We'll just send you across the country, and then we'll go have a gin and tonic. And their dad was working in D.C. at the time, so it wasn't too far removed, but it was way far removed from
Montgomery.
Montgomery. But, it sounds like, these jet setters.
Huntsville, though.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They were, it was Montgomery, because it was like Huntsville, Montgomery. They were
Back
like,
and forth between.
yeah, all over the place. And her dad's political career, like I said, brought him to Washington. So, they kind of skipped from school to school and closer schools to Washington. And at the age of 15, Tallulah's aunt encouraged her to take more pride in her appearance, which I have a hard time believing it was just at the age of 15. I would have, as a chunky girl, I'm pretty sure they gave her a hard time like all throughout her life.
Yeah.
But as she, 15's the marrying age in Alabama, right? I don't know. But we can, we just
I'm sure it was then.
making assumptions here. So her aunt was encouraging to just take more pride in her appearance and suggested she go on a diet to improve her confidence.
This will improve your confidence. I'll bring to light something that you don't personally think is a problem.
Right? But, I mean, yeah, it doesn't really sound like she had that much problem with her confidence to begin with. Mm-hmm. So Tallulah, being the stronger and even more rebellious personality, sought a career in acting. And
Sorry.
What are you doing?
I dropped an olive.
we have olives?
It was from pizza.
Oh.
I totally thought you were catching a spider.
I
or
thought you were
something on the
catching a
fucking floor.
spider, too. I was like, kill it.
I know. I wanted to make sure you knew that black thing was a black olive from the pizza.
Okay.
Not a bug. Continue.
Carrying on. So at the age of 15, she went on a diet. But no, so they were really, her and her sister, being Southern Hellcats, at these, convent schools with Mother Mary Teresa nuns and their rulers rapping knuckles and stuff. They were not tamed. Like, that had no effect on them whatsoever. Eugenia, her older sister, was more of a romantic and got married at the age of 16.
Oh, gross.
And ended up, her sister ended up marrying like 7 times to 6 different men during her life.
Did they all die? Probably.
I doubt it.
I
Sounds
doubt it.
suspicious. Sounds like a next story.
Could be. I'll look into that. Tallulah, though, was a much more rebellious personality and wanted a career, and men were just something on the side. Although men played a big part, but not a part in like tacking her down.
I was going to say, men are a means to an end.
She definitely picked lust over love and showed no particular interest in marrying. Oh my God. She is such a badass. I'm just going to tell you right now, I love this woman. I totally, like, if I would have studied her and just how much she did and how much she just fucking went for it, like 15 years old, I would have been like, I'm still just amazed. Anyway, let's continue. So Tallulah was, on a side note, because she lived in Montgomery with her aunts, and her namesake grandmother was friends with, American socialite novelist Zelda.
I knew you were going to say Zelda. I knew Zelda
Fitzgerald.
was coming into this story because it sounds same time period
Same-
in Montgomery.
Right, in Montgomery, yes. So, yeah, I don't want to say that Tallulah ever peaked, because I really don't think that she ever peaked. But in her 20s, it was the roaring. She hit the roaring 20s. Yeah, in her 20s, she was like the ideal flapper age. So her career started at 15.
Damn.
So she happened to, after the vaudeville thing and her starting to entertain people and getting attention from that, she submitted her photo to Picture Play, which was like a magazine or something that was conducting a contest and awarding people with a trip to New York plus a movie part for like 12 people solely based on their photographs.
What?
So she sent her photograph in, but she forgot to send in her name or her address.
Well, shit.
But she won. And she didn't know that she won until she was at a drugstore looking at the magazines, and she sees her photo in this magazine, and it's captioned, "Who is she?"
It's captioned, "Have you seen this child?"
Right? Have you seen this child? And so she was like, "Oh shit, that's me. That's me." And they urged her in the magazine to contact the paper at once. And so her dad sent a letter because, senator.
He's a senator now?
I don't know at this time if
But
he's a senator.
He was in politics.
He was in
politics. So
politics.
he got
he
connections.
He had connections. They all, they have money. They've had money. It's like, the upper crust of Montgomery, Huntsville, Alabama, whatever. She goes up to New York, and she's paid $75 for 3 weeks of work in this film called Who Loved Him Best. And she only had like a minor part. But again, really like being in New York, being 15, being in this picture, this is where she was born to be.
Mm-hmm. I can't
She'd
imagine.
been in New York, right? But then she'd been back around schools to school.
Mm-hmm.
But she had been in New York in school for
Right.
while she
But
was
it's
younger.
different to be on a movie set.
Yeah, and
Right.
she
Then
was
in a
younger, too.
convent. Right.
10,
A
11.
movie set is different than a
Convent.
Is it? What?
It depends on what movie you're in.
Unless
right?
you're Julie Andrews.
Unless you're Julian.
Nobody
So
solves a problem like Tallulah.
At the age of 15, she moved into the Algonquin Hotel, which was the hotspot for the artistic and literary elite of the area.
Uh-oh.
So she moved
That's
into the like big artistic free-for-all
Orgies.
orgies. Oh my Lord. She quickly charmed her way into the famous Algonquin Round Table of the hotel bar at the age of 15 and became a part of the Vicious Circle, which talked about pretty much everybody and anybody in society and in the arts there.
Was it like, it's like the Mean Girls Club?
She was totally in the Mean Girls Club. She
no.
probably,
Tallulah.
I don't know if she was president of the Mean Girls Club, but she was dubbed one of the 4 riders of the Algonquin.
The apocalypse.
Of the, right?
The
Of
4
the-
riders of the Algonquin.
The book. What was the book they called it in Mean Girls?
Oh, I can't remember what they called
The
it.
Burn Book.
The Burn Book.
Yes. So it was Tallulah, it was Estella Winwood, Eva LeGalligan,
That's a name.
and Blythe Daly.
Blythe Danner.
Blythe Dolly. While she was like in this Mean Girls group talking, dishing about all the things, her dad warned her, she's like, at 15, avoid alcohol and men when she got to New York. So that was like his advice is like avoid alcohol and men.
Now here's $50.
Right?
Go be free.
And go live in this like artistic hotel. And Tallulah later said he didn't say anything about women and cocaine.
Oh, shit.
So the Algonquin
God.
wild parties introduced Tallulah to cocaine, marijuana, which she later remarked, cocaine isn't habit forming. I know because I've been taking it for years. She is pretty much, if you listen to the over-exaggeration of Cruella de Vil, she very much talks like Dah-ling was her catchphrase. So any upper society Dah-ling talk was Tallulah Bankhead's doing.
Oh, darling.
Dah-ling. Tallulah abstained from drinking, keeping her promise to her dad.
Really?
Plausible deniability. But she definitely slept with men and women and did coke and marijuana all in her teens.
Shit.
She also befriended
Yes.
Estella Woodwin, who was pretty much a lifelong friend of hers. And she met Ethel Barrymore, who was the great aunt of actress Drew Barrymore.
I'll be damned.
Ethel Barrymore tried to persuade her to change her first name to Barbara.
What?
Yeah, which is good because Tallulah fits her.
Bob?
Barbara?
Oh, Barbara. I thought you were saying you were actually saying Baba.
She's saying Barbara.
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 My mistake.
Barbara. Yeah, no. But Barbara Bankhead. That just doesn't.
Barbara
Say
Bankhead.
say it like a Yankee, Patrice. Barbara.
Barbara.
Come on, Barb.
Barb. Sorry, Yankee friends.
Yeah.
Barb.
Barb. But Tallulah declined. Vanity Fair later wrote that she was the only actress on both sides of the Atlantic to be recognized by her first name only. So she was the original Cher.
Yeah, Tallulah.
Tallulah was the original. You
Yes.
said Tallulah, and you knew exactly who you're talking about, darling. At the age of 16, 17, She had roles in 3 different silent films: When Men Portray, 30 a Week, and The Trap.
Is she the trap?
She actually, I think she plays a demure housewife at the age of
16 or
16. It was soon after that that she found the stage, and she debuted in The Squab Farm in New York. And she realized that really the stage was where she was meant to be, because it was instant gratification. It was pure energy. Like when you're on a movie set, it's like acting, and then you go sit for a while, and then you have to wait, and then you don't get that.
You don't get any feedback.
You don't get any feedback, and there's no energy. And she was pure, just like energy.
Did you say the name of the theater was the Squab Farm?
No, the Squab Farm is what she debuted, like the play that she debuted.
What a
the
weird name for anything, though.
The name of the theater was the Bijou. Yeah,
Bijou.
theater in New York. She also had a role in the 1919 Footloose, 1919 Nice People. I don't know if that's like...
You think it was a town that couldn't dance? No music? No
Which
dancing?
would like fit her personality perfect,
She's
right?
Kevin Bacon.
And it would
She
make sense because
is.
that was during Prohibition. So
Right?
Footloose in Prohibition time sounds about right where it came from.
Yeah.
It's probably like Footloose and Fancy Free.
Yes, that's probably it. And Nice People, 1921, Every Day, 1921, Danger, 1922, Her Temporary Husband, 1922, and The Exciter. So she did all of these plays, and her acting was praised, but the plays themselves were commercially and critically unsuccessful.
With names like that, I don't know why.
Danger.
The Exciter.
Her Temporary Husband.
I like that one. That sounds like
That one does make me want to see it.
I know. I
want to
see
read
the
the script
temporary
for that one.
husband. I had one.
And thank y'all for listening to The Strange South. And good day.
I told you I haven't drank all month.
So Tallulah, also with many temporary husbands, had been in New York for 5 years and was 20.
Oh, Lord.
But she had yet to score a significant hit.
Yeah. She ain't got the
a lot
hint.
of hints.
I was listening to this podcast, or not a podcast, it was actually an audiobook. Her autobiographical story is not on Audible, so I could not listen to that, and I was not going to read. I don't have time to read like words and things like that.
I pay you to read to me.
Right, that's
Well,
right.
I pay you, Audible.
Exactly, that's why I pay you. But her book was not on there. But I was listening to what was on there. It's like a little hour history on different celebrities and stuff. And they said, she moved to London. She went from New York at 20, from New York to London. And this history said that she had met this, I don't even know who he was, but she met this Mr. Man. And he's like, you would be perfect for this production of this Mr. French man over
Mr. Big.
in London, right?
This sounds like a porn setup.
Yes, it's very much does. And so Mr. Frenchman, like he told Mr. Man, like, I've already got somebody that's going to headline this production that I'm setting up. And Mr. Man told Mr. Frenchman, but you haven't met Tallulah.
Oh.
Mr. Frenchman says, no thanks. And Mr. Man goes like, you don't know what you're doing. And Tallulah goes, you obviously don't know what you're doing, darling.
Darling.
And so at the age of 20, she books a passage to London, knowing that she doesn't have the part, but totally convinced that he made a mistake and that the part should be hers. So she goes there by herself, is in London, doesn't know where anything is, finds Mr. Man over there in London, and she's like, I'm here, let's go convince Mr. Frenchman to give me the part. And they do, and she does, because she's very charismatic, and she talks him into like getting this part in this play.
Wow.
Which is amazing. In 1923, 21-year-old Tallulah Bankhead made her debut on the London stage in the Wyndham Theatre. Over the next 8 years, she did so many different plays. She did The Dancers at the Lyric. She did Gold Diggers. And she ended up being, because she was so personable and such a big personality, she got typecast. And she was also very promiscuous also during this time. Like she was like, it was the 20s. Like this is the 20s. It was flappers. She's
in her 20s.
And she's in her 20s. And she is like the epitome of the 20s flapper. Living large, living out all night, doing cocaine, sleeping with everybody. You know, she is living her best life. And it wasn't until in 1924 when she played They Knew What They Wanted that she played against her type and actually won a Pulitzer Prize when she was 23.
Pulitzer?
Pulitzer, thank you.
They gave it for that, though?
Mm-hmm. Oh. They gave her for the character Amy that she played, and They Knew What She Wanted. And she's starting to build up like fans. She has fans who know what she does. And she's a bit of a ham because, again, she's always like wanted to like entertain and play and be adored by people. While she, you know, won that prize for that play in 1924, it was the play The Gold Diggers that, you know, she was back at drunken antics of cartwheels and dancing and that, you know, her fans really wanted and were appreciative of. But while she was in London and doing all these different plays, she bought herself a Bentley, which she loved, obviously. However, she was not very competent with directions and constantly found herself lost in the London streets. So,
and they drive on the other side.
Right. And, you know, she was very not worried, really. She was very privileged. She was born into privilege. She didn't even think twice about it. Mm-hmm. But when she would get lost, she would call a taxi and she would pay the driver to go to the destination, and then she would drive behind the taxi to get to where she needed to go when she would get lost. She was extremely smart. I mean, extremely clever.
That's eccentric.
Mm-hmm. Very eccentric, right? Dah-ling. So she spent 8 years there in the London stage, and she earned a reputation for really making the most of inferior material. She was really great at improv. For example, in her autobiography, she talks about the opening of this play called Conchita, which was about, I believe, a Spanish barmaid. And the critics really ground her into the dirt on this one. But she says, in the second act, I came on carrying a monkey. On opening night, the monkey went berserk. He snatched my black wig from my head, leaped from my arms, scampered down to the floodlights where he paused, peered out into the audience, then waved my wig over his head. The audience had been giggling at the absurd plot even before the simian had me. Now it became hysterical. What did Tallulah do in this crisis? I turned a cartwheel and the audience roared.
She's like, when in doubt, turn a cartwheel.
When in doubt, turn a cartwheel. After the monkey business, I was afraid they may boo me, but instead I received an ovation.
Sounds like the monkey received an ovation.
It really does. But they said that was that was not the role for her, and she tried to play her Southern charms into a Spanish character, which did not work. It was a mistake. Yeah. So it was a flop. The critics said that she had no personality. She's following these critics, and they say that she has no personality, which is what she prides herself on. And she went really into an almost instant depression. Where she went into her room and she took a handful of sleeping pills trying to kill herself.
Shit.
Damn.
I know.
Don't read the comments, girl.
I know, right?
Don't read the comments.
And she ended up, from all these pills that she took, passing out. However, she says the next day she woke up feeling fine and ready to go.
I was like, she got some really deep sleep.
She probably got some really needed sleep there. But one of the problems that she found when she was over in London, that she has never paid taxes before, and the tax man cometh for her. And she ended up having to owe all this money, and it just became a bad situation. things were settling down there in London. So she's like, I'm going to go back over to New York. So, and when she was 29 years old, Tallulah returned to the United States. And this was like 1931. But Hollywood at that time still kind of eluded her. She did 4 films in 1 year. Like,
yeah, they turned them out back then.
This is like the
That
kind
was
of
the-
work. Yeah, that she was constant, like all these plays and all these, she was constantly working always. And the fact that she at that time was 29 years old, which was kind of like old maid in Hollywood terms, she was pretty prolific throughout her career. Like she worked throughout her career. She never, I'm sure, I mean, the parts changed obviously, but she was never really put out to pasture because she was larger than life, and she became this staple of, you know, the Hollywood circles and the motion pictures at the time. So she went back to New York and she got these parts and these bad parts in these really meh kind of movies, and she didn't like it at all. Like in 1931, she played the Tarnished Lady, the film The Tarnished Lady, which fit into her stereotype of what she usually plays. But she got bored. She didn't like the parts. It seemed to be kind of monotonous, and she really had no patience for the filmmaking schedule. After living 8 years over in the UK and touring and doing all this, you know, really energizing back and forth with the audience and her fans, you know, Hollywood was kind of meh to her. And she met this producer, Irving Thalberg, and she says, "How do you get laid in this dreadful place?" And Thalberg retorted, "I'm sure you'll have no problems. Ask anyone." She moved from New York to Hollywood, and she rented a home, and she began hosting parties where the parties were said to have no boundaries. But she's not really, you know, interested in making films at this time because, again, they're kind of boring. They're giving her the kind of the same part over and over again. And it's a lot of it is very formulaic, especially during those times right before World War II, after, you know, the Roaring 20s. And then, you know, still she's getting a little bit older. But they offered to pay her like $50,000 per film. So that's nothing to sneeze at. So in 1932, she made the movie Devil in the Deep. And it's notable because there were 3 major co-stars there with her, and she was billed first. She was like the top billing, acting next to Gary Cooper and Charles Laughton and Cary Grant.
Oh, wow.
And so like these really big time stars, and she's like the number 1 star on the playbill, or whatever you call it, the lights. What did they call it? The
thing outside the
marquee. Marquee. She was and it was actually, that film was the only film that Cooper and Grant were in the same film as leading men, although they shared no scenes together. She literally says, "Dah-ling, the main reason I accepted the part was to fuck that divine Gary Cooper."
Gary Cooper, not Cary Grant.
Yeah, Gary Cooper.
I'm gonna look him up. I've been looking her up. I've been looking at these pictures of her.
So in 1932, Tallulah starred opposite Robert Montgomery and Faithless. So she was getting like all these top billed lady parts, getting a lot of attention. And Motion Picture Magazine in 1932, she did an article, and in that article, she ranted about the state of her life and her views on love and marriage and children. And she said, "I'm serious about love. I'm damn serious about it now. I haven't had an affair for 6 months. 6 months. Too long. If there's anything the matter with me now, it's not Hollywood or Hollywood's state of mind. The matter with me is I want a man. 6 months is a long, long while. I want a man." So she said this in this to this reporter, and of course the reporter, you know, published it. And the Times actually ran this story about it, and her family back in the South caught wind of it and got kind of pissed about it. And Tallulah immediately telegraphed her father, vowing never to speak with the magazine reporter again, because obviously she was just like shooting the shit with the guy. And of course he published it. Because she was just known for saying just outrageous stuff. And because of these offhanded remarks, and because of the time period right before World War II, where they were starting to really come down on censoring movies, Tallulah was cited in the Hayes Committee Doom Book, which was a list of 150 150 actors and actresses considered unsuitable for the public.
Oh.
Of course, she had something to say about that. Tallulah, who was at the top of the list, basically, with the heading Verbal Moral Turpitude, publicly called Hayes a little prick.
Verbal moral turpitude.
So she was getting all this shit from the holier than thous in Hollywood. So, and she wasn't digging the movie scene anyway. So she went back to Broadway and starred in a series of really middling plays, which were ironically later turned into highly successful Hollywood films.
Yep.
Starring other actresses.
Hey.
And when she was in New York, she was wanting to do, different things, but could never find anyone to produce it. So she decided to direct her own production. And in 1933, she produced or directed Forsaken All Others. And this was a romantic comedy drama with three friends, like love triangle kind of thing. And it was moderately successful. And she ran like 110 performances. But then the film came out of it in 1934 with Joan Crawford. And it became one of the year's biggest financial critical success. And still the same thing with, like, she did Jezebel and Dark Victories. And these were both kind of received on the stage, but turned into prestigious films for Bette Davis. So Bette Davis is Jezebel. Y'all remember that. But eventually, like, having produced these pieces on the stage, she found herself like in debt because, again, they weren't popular on the stage as they were in the movie theaters. And it was in like 1933. So y'all, she's been back over in the States for 2 years. And she's already done this shit. She's done New York, done a bunch of plays, moved out to Hollywood, done a bunch of movies, and then come back to New York to do more plays.
All in 2 years.
All in 2 years. Like all of this, this is like a lifetimes of work that she's done like in 2 years, right? But it was while she was back in New York performing in Jezebel that she started to have unbearable abdominal pain and swelling. And she was in and out of the hospital for several months. And it was because the doctors had misdiagnosed her. She had gonorrhea.
Oh, shit.
And it had gone on long enough because she had been misdiagnosed. They didn't know what it was, that it got into her reproductive system. Really, that's what it is, right? And so she ended up having an emergency hysterectomy for like 5 hours, where she almost died during the surgery.
Oy.
And she claimed that she had contracted it either from Gary Cooper or George Raft. She did fuck all. She was going to name names and did not care one bit.
Good gonorrhea from Gary Cooper.
Right? So when she got out of it, threw her into automatic menopause, as hysterectomy does sometimes. And she weighed only 70 pounds when she left the hospital.
Shit.
However, she vowed to continue her promiscuous and partying lifestyle. She stoically said to her doctor, "Don't think this has taught me a lesson."
I refuse to learn.
I refuse to learn. All right, and this is going to end the first part of Tallulah Bankhead's most lustfully promiscuous, amazing life.
Turpitude.
In the after talk, we will talk more about her sexcapades.
Sexcapades. Gonorrhea.
Gonorrhea.
Lord. That shouldn't be a song. I'm sorry.
No, it really shouldn't.
Well, happy 100th episode,
Tallulah.
friends.
Tallulah.
Tallulah.
Happy 100.
Happy.
Thank y'all so much for listening to us. If you're just starting to listen to us, or if you've listened all the way, we appreciate you so much.
Yes.
And we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all. Oh, yeah. There we go. Thank you for being a friend.
Do 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 do.
Travel down the road and back again.
Ba-dum,
Your
boom.
heart is true. You're a pal and a
Confidant. Ba-da-dun-dun-dun. And if you threw a party,
Yeah.
invited everyone you knew.
Everyone you knew.
You would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend.
Do, do, do.